I'm Rene Ritchie, YouTube Creator Liaison.
And I'm AB, PM Lead for YouTube Studio.
AB, I am so glad to get this chance to talk with you. You are just like a ray of sunshine in my creator day. I really appreciate it. And I love that you make Studio, which is like really a creator product. But I think most people watching this know what Studio is. I'd like to ask you why Studio is, because we can't always take it for granted that you'd have a separate app that gives everything that creators want. That's like a big lift on YouTube's part.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the why and the what are kind of connected. So the why, we sort of got together and really thought about this, right? And we're like, what is the thing that manifests what Studio is trying to be for creators? And we call it the creative partner. So it's that partner that's right there with you, who you can spar with, you can sort of riff with, and that feeling that that person's got your back in that, that sort of way. Your goals are their goals, you know what I mean? And so that was that's the why of Studio. And that creative partner should be at every stage of your journey. So whether you're starting out as an upcoming creator, dance casual videos, right? In the YouTube app, where we don't want you to have to download another app. So we brought we call it Studio Mini. Yeah. We brought a mini version of Studio into that. So you can get basic analytics, you can get sort of your comments, you can get some milestones that recognize the progress. Everybody loves a milestone, right? And then as you become, more intentful and more established, and you want to kind of go deeper into, wait, hold on, let me go behind why these views are high on this video versus that video. Then you go into our standalone experiences, Studio Mobile or Studio Web. So that's really it at the core, is the creative partner for creators.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think what we're seeing is really interesting. That to your point, YouTube grew up with a bunch of long-form creators who became very deep into the ecosystem. But we're seeing this whole other wave of people who maybe back in the day would have posted on Usenet or a forum or on social media. But now, because everybody is so comfortable with video, maybe they don't even see themselves as a creator, but I have an opinion, I want to share it, I want to have a discussion. And so they'll post a short, they'll do a reply with short, they'll have these whole conversations online, but it's very different than a traditional creator, and maybe they haven't downloaded Studio yet.
And I like to actually say there are very few people sort of come out and say, I want to be a creator. Yeah. It's happening more and more. We're looking at the Gen Alphas and the Gen Zs of today. They want to be, used to be a YouTuber, now it's a creator. But there are a lot of stories that you hear where it's just, I have a voice. Yeah. I have something to share. I have something, I want the world to see. And I want to be able to do that in a way where it feels like I don't need a lot of scaffolding. So I don't need to have to, have a whole team of or equipment. I can just express myself. And then what tends to happen is when you talk to creators, there'll be something that happens. There'll be that one video or something that happens where they suddenly start to think of themselves as a creator. And then you'll have, of course, people who just get up and say, hey, I want to be a creator. That's my thing. And those are, they're the very, very inspiring cases because something just draws them into it. But I think for both of these groups of people, you want that expression to be as seamless as possible. And you want it to feel like, I hear this sort of expression, the weight of the publish button. Yeah. It's very light. And so you sort of put that video out there, you share what you feel you're comfortable sharing, and then you start to find your voice, is what I like to call it.
I love that.
Yeah,
because YouTube's mission is to give everyone a voice, and you help us
the world.
Figure out how it resonates.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Exactly.
So we mentioned the casual versus the intentful creator, but you also have people who might classify themselves more artistically and not really like the numbers. And then you have other people who would classify themselves as maybe high-level statisticians and want every number you can give them and a pivot table on top of it. How do you think about balancing between that incredible range of creator interest?
Well, I always like to say, maybe it's, innocent or naive, but I like to say that every problem that manifests in the world is just a human problem. And you can look somewhere else and find the same thing. So for example, there are people who obsess over Bitcoin and investing in, different stocks and tracking everything and going deep into the market cap. And there are people me who just...
And me.
I'm back in the day, I probably would have put my money under my bed, you know what I mean? And now it's okay, the simplest Vanguard stock.
Yeah, index fund and
index
YOLO.
Funding, and just leave it alone, And so, and then there are people who outsource it as well.
Yeah.
So that's like a similar analogy. The people who do that with their finances. You know, they look at every bill, and then there are people who are sort of like, you know what, I'm just going to set aside an amount, and I'm not going to go to optimize which phone. You know, so we have to. Ultimately, creation is a human experience at its core. And I think that's the most beautiful thing of it, right? So what we try to do is sort of get into, there are all these different nuanced humans, right? Creators with different needs. And how do we make sure that Studio flexes? And we haven't always, like, I think we used to sort of optimize for, here's all the information, and we're
you figure it out.
Right. We're also very sort of geeky, Googlers, right? So we like the numbers and the data, but not everyone thinks that way. So we want to make sure for some people, you know, success is, I have a lot of people commenting and engaging and liking. For some people, it's like, I want to go deep into how many watch hours and how many views and how many new. For some kinds of creators, it's, I want more new viewers, and for others it's, I want more returning, I want stickiness out. And actually that also evolves. You might start off wanting something and you might change. And I call these sort of the inflection points, and it's very like just in life, what you wanted when you were a 5-year-old, what you wanted a 10-year-old, 18-year-old, 21-year-old evolves. And so that create a life cycle is also very important. So we're always thinking about, let's try to sort of think about the different types of creators, what they're trying to accomplish, and make sure that a true creative partner would speak the same language, right? And there's so much more we can do with that. So things like we used to show the sort of the red color for when numbers were down. Like, you know, hearing from creators, actually, that doesn't really inspire me. Like, I wouldn't want to come into work and it's like, you know, here's how all the things you didn't do well. So we're definitely working on making sure that we better understand creator needs, and then having Studio sort of flex to meet creators where they are.
Yeah, I love that, because like some of the things that you're doing on different extremes I really like, because I'm a recovering data person, and data
I love that.
data doesn't really tell you anything. Like, if you have 1 point of data, it's a state. If you have 2 points, it's a direction. If you have multiple points, it's a trend. But like, you still have to interpret it, and maybe 30% means you shouldn't do it, or maybe it means you should do more, and that's not obvious just like when you see the numbers. So I love that now you have like these little descriptions of your regular viewers aren't engaging as much, or your regular viewers are engaging more, or like we get the weekly summaries and like these very Edward Tufte visual representations of data for people who aren't as number centric but need those visuals. And on the other end, we're getting more detail in the advanced analytics, like by retention, by view, like all these slicing and dicing segments. And it sort of feels like I'm getting fed on both sides, which I love.
I mean, a perfect analogy is we've just started the year, we all have New Year's resolutions, 10,000 steps and reading number of books, etc. You know, you look at your data and it sort of says, oh, you're gaining weight, right? And true story. And then to your point, it's like you could look at that one point in time where you could say, wait, hold on a second. Maybe yesterday I drank a lot of water. Or I ate very late.
Or I'm building muscle.
I'm building muscle. I was just getting to that. I'm building muscle. And actually, maybe this actually is a good thing. And so I like to say, and you know, this is maybe crazy to hear from somebody whose team builds YouTube analytics. The data can be fantastically wrong, depending on how you look at it. And it can also be fantastically beautiful. And I think going one step back, using this weight analogy as well as, what are you trying to accomplish? Right? So what tends to happen is, you know, not every creator should be looking at all the same metrics at the same time. If you are a creator, I love your lawnmower analogy. If you're a creator who's making sort of videos where it's sort of a one-time, one right answer, like, how do I fix my Philip Hue light bulb, right? I'm hoping I'm not having that problem every day. Do you know what I mean? And if that's the goal, and then maybe you're looking at more new viewers, because every time you're reaching more and more people. But, you know, we were talking about this the other day. If you're a creator who's, you care about sort of the Philips Hue range of light bulbs, then you start to talk about, you know, ways to avoid problems, you know, updates to the app. And then you start to bring the stickiness of people who resonate with that story. So I like to sort of, you know, say, there are 2 dimensions to think about. One is, what kind of story are you telling? So is the story to educate people on something? Or is the story to connect on a sort of experience, right? So I'm Nigerian. I have videos on DJing. I actually have my sets there. I have videos on cooking, on traveling. And I'm hoping another Nigerian will look at it and be like, oh, I'm interested to see another Nigerian's life, right? I don't have videos that are like, this is my domain and my expertise.
Yeah.
And so the commonality there is the experience. But there's maybe, like I told you, I started, I actually worked on a short documentary.
Yeah, you're a creator.
I'm a creator. and I also like to say if I knew
You felt our pain.
I feel the pain every day. And if I knew the hacks, I would not have 150 subscribers. So like and subscribe.
Yes.
Like and subscribe. And so, with this other channel that I have that's more about, celebrating West African culture, it's a very specific story. And I'm hoping that people will come back for the story, right? Not so much the experience side. So, and then there are creators who are really good at blending the two, where they're talking about an iPhone or talking about whatever the topic du jour is, but they're able to bring themselves into that. So you have this connected, the experience as well as the topical, right? And so first is like, what are you trying to accomplish? And then out of that, you'll now say, okay, where am I in my journey? Am I at the stage where I'm trying to get, reach more people to see this video? Or am I at the stage where I'm trying to get more people to engage more deeply?
Yeah.
So there are those are the kind of the two dimensions. What kind of topic and what am I optimizing for? And what am I trying to accomplish right now? And that actually continues along the continuum of your life cycle, right? And then you can start to ask questions like, okay, where are people finding my videos from?
Yeah.
If I'm trying to drive reach, then okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe I need to create shorts that are linked to my video.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I want to collaborate with another creator that helps me reach more people. And then if it's more that I've got my people, but I'm seeing that they're not sticking, I look at a video and the average view duration is tipping off. Okay, why is that? Is that okay? Did I expect that? Right? So the people that stay are like the die hard, I want to get to the end of this video. Or actually, no, I need to optimize the first 15 seconds you'll hear, the first minute. So I think there are all these questions that not everyone's metrics should look the same. Just as not every human.
Yeah.
Going back to this.
And to your point, not every day may you
not
want
every
the same.
day
Yeah.
may be the same.
Yeah.
Right? So what are you trying to accomplish and being very intentional about that?
Yeah. So I love just diving in to sort of answer questions. Like one of the things, I like the dashboard, but the dashboard gives me a lot of statistics and averages, and statistics and averages are terrible for me. I love to click in. So if for example, I see traffic sources, and we have people sometimes saying, hey, don't uncheck show this to your subscribers and your views will go up. But if you click into traffic sources, you'll just see that you removed that element, but your browse views didn't go up. Or if you're saying, oh, the algorithm hates me, you can click in and see, oh, how are my subscribers reacting to this video? And oh, they don't like it either. Maybe it's maybe it's not the algorithm that can give you a gut check there. Absolutely. So going into the details, I think are super interesting.
Absolutely, and going into the details with an intention. Right? So you just go into the details, you will find the devil, right? You just go in with but if you're going in with a curiosity of wait, hold on a second, why is this doing this? I'm going to compare it with another video. What's also happening? Because also the world is changing. So what's happening right now, if you are putting out a video right when Kendrick Lamar's doing the Super Bowl, right?
Or the World Cup.
The World Cup, football or soccer for the Americans. So I think there are all these nuances in what's happening macro. What am I sort of trying to accomplish? What can I learn from the numbers? And then that helps you go in with a little bit more intentionality of, when I go into those details, I'm able to meet them with curiosity. And then ask the why, the 5 whys. We'll hear about that.
So have a goal for what you want to do.
Absolutely.
And a goal for what you want to learn. Yes,
exactly.
I love that.
And then I think there's another thing, which is we also recognize that just having new and returning, that's a broad SWOT, right? And one of the things we're definitely looking to do is how do we bring more nuance into understanding those groups, right? New, returning, are there other sort of slices that help you better
Returning
understand?
once versus returning 10 times might be different.
Precisely.
Yeah.
If I watched your video and I came back after a month, that's different. And that's very different from someone who's watching it every day, right? And so we want to also help you better understand that. And you may find, actually, it's maybe not a bad thing that you have these 50 people that are returning every single day. what can I learn about what's keeping that group of people?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what I optimize for in new people come. Because it's not always a bad thing for people to come in and say, actually, maybe that's not for me. And then you find your tribe and your fans that actually, wow, I want more of this.
Also, like if you have 100,000 views for several videos, it's probably not the same 100,000 people, but there probably is a segment, that are going video to video, and learning that can really help you like do that deeper engagement you were talking about.
And what are they coming for? You know what I mean? Yeah. So I see that, for example, with my DJing videos. There are people who come back for the track ID, right? And I'm like, okay. That's like a very specific, but then I post videos of our dog and travel. I mean, the people who are coming for a track ID probably don't care about that, right? So there's also that awareness of, okay, like there is a certain group that comes back. You'll see them comment. I'll have my 2 or 3 comments every time I post a mixtape and sort of say, where's the next one? So it's just like life. Yeah. have purpose.
That brings me to like, I think the famous or sometimes infamous 1 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I had a hard time with that initially, and then mutual friend Todd Beaupre said like, relative to what? And I had to look and say, like, I would make a video about like a big phone review and it would be 1 of 10. But I would make a video about accessibility and it would be 10 of 10, and I would be sad about it. But then I realized, in Hollywood, they make a big like superhero blockbuster, but then they go and do an art house film. Are they upset the box office and the bill payment day isn't the same? No, they make the big one so that they have the luxury of making that. Absolutely. And that just changed my world. And I started thinking, what's the addressable market of this video? What's the supply and demand within that market? And then how well am I executing within that space? And that helped me understand that this very small cultural video is never going to have the same appeal as this gadget that everyone in the world wants. And so I can use these within that to sort of set my own expectations.
Spot on. And this pattern exists in so many ways, right? Again, going back to sort of the human experience, there are times when we want to take risks and try new things. And of course, as you know, there are lots of, we'll probably link them in the show notes, quite a few videos about the algorithm and the myths around the algorithm. And again, you have people, you have macro topical things that are top of mind. And so for some, I hear some creators sort of say, I take what I do and when I'm optimizing for sort of jumping on that zeitgeist moment, I'll take a topic, whether it's the Olympics or something, and weave that into my story, make a comedy skit about it. But if you are optimizing for telling, and for me, this is something I think when I speak to creators, when, it gets tough and, there's sort of that period where it's like, I feel like I have to keep going. And the thing they come back to all the time is a reminder of why I started doing what I was doing, right? And if the why was, and hopefully is, I want to share something with the world, whether it's a passion, like I'm obsessed. I used to be obsessed once upon a time. I don't watch them as much anymore, but with chess videos, I watched every single, whether it's Gotham chess or like I want, yes. And I mean, even when from his girlfriend to his fiance, I feel like I was part of his life, And I'm not watching those anymore. Like, not because of now I'm a bit more obsessed with like plants. But humans go through ebbs and flows.
Your Game of Thrones era, and then you have like your Severance era. Then you have
I'm definitely in the Severance era. I'm like down in the Reddits on the Severance and like in the comments. And so I think, the top 10, it is great to always think about what worked and how do I keep pushing the envelope. But I think it's also very important to say sometimes it's okay to have certain things where, and again, this is the intentionality piece, where it's like, I tried something different and actually when I looked at it, maybe the curiosity, maybe there was something in that, there are a group of people who loved it. There are people, maybe this was not the video for reach. Maybe I was too, You know, I took too much of a risk, which is fine, but there's always something to learn.
Or maybe it's serving my core audience, or maybe it's like, oh, I can make this small tweak with a thumbnail and reach. That's why I love we have like the text and stuff there.
Segueing to thumbnails now?
I am. I thought I was being so smooth. Because it was such a big thing, meaningful thing for creators, because creators have been asking for a long time for thumbnail A/B testing. You did better. You did thumbnail ABC, like you did test and compare, and people love it. But again, we have this tyranny of statistics. So one of the questions we get is, I ran the test, and sometimes it's I changed the small pin on my collar. There's 3 different pins on the collar. I don't get a winner just because the difference is too small.
Yes.
But even sometimes they'll run the test and they'll say, I got 32, 33, and 35, but it says no winner declared.
Right.
What does that really mean? What does a statistically significant mean,
Yes.
as opposed to just, oh, the sheer number is higher?
I'll try to explain this in something we can all relate to,
Okay.
right? So if you take a coin, let's say we took a coin and you said heads and I said tails, and we flip that coin 100 times, if I'm flipping it in the exact same way, I'm not trying to, in the exact same way, you probably should expect something like 55 times it was heads, or 45 times it was tails, or 51, 49, because it's a fair toss every time. The coin is weighted the same. The air in this room hasn't changed. Gravity hasn't changed. So basically, we end up with this difference. If, however, I did that and you got 80-20, right?
Yeah.
Now you're saying, oh wow, there's a massive difference, but was it fair?
Yeah.
And so what the sort of the wizards of data science do is they'll use maths to essentially ask the question, is the probability of this randomness fair?
Okay.
Right? And what you want is, if that probability that it's this actually, is not something where something has changed, right? And it's low, then you have statistical significance. It means there actually is something different, right? It's not something else that is changing the fact that we're getting
it's signal, not noise.
It's signal, not noise. I love that.
Yeah.
And so, and you think about a platform like YouTube, that is so nuanced, right? Because again, we're showing at different times of days when people are watching videos, the kind of videos I want to watch in the morning when I'm about to, get on my bike, a quick video, and the video on my phone versus TV are very different. So we also have to, we have to do a lot of sort of maths and, to really make sure that you have statistical significance. Now, if you did that 10 times versus 1,000,000 times, right? You start to get that statistical significance, because we've just had too few tosses to determine whether that probability of getting heads versus tails. I try not to go into too much geekery, but I'm hoping, you're still with me in this. And so that really is it. And so we can't, if you have too few instances and I need to control for example, 4 o'clock, the same phone, the same location, to make sure this is truly a difference, that thumbnail A versus thumbnail B, heads versus tails, was truly different. Otherwise, you could say, wait, hold on, it was the time of the day. Or hold on, it was maybe, what the person watched before, or there are all these
ran for
factors.
one less day versus one more day, different result,
Thank you. And so that's what we mean by statistical significance. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have now educated you on thumbnail test, statistical significance, and A/B experimentation, or ABC experimentation. And of course, ABC, you're adding one more variable, so that makes it even need more instances to see that statistical significance. So that really is what it comes down to, that we don't want to say, actually, heads is better, when, hold on, maybe the finger was different in the way it was tossed, or it landed on the floor versus the table. So we need enough instances to control for the exact same sort of circumstances to say truly heads was better. So indeed, if heads and tails they look exactly the same, right? Or you have this tiny delta, we're not really able to say whether there really is a meaningful difference. So what I hear some creators say is they'll run sometimes an A/B test with 2 very different concepts. And then when one of them wins, then they'll run a nuanced version of that option. But if you are a creator that's not getting as many views or impressions, then what we try to do is say, okay, we can't say that this was statistically significant, but we can see there was a preferred skew, but I can't tell you for a fact with confidence the heads is, we saw heads 60% of the time, but I can't tell you whether that was randomness, whether that truly, you see what I mean?
We've done it for twice as long or twice as many views, it would have been a different result.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is the essence of it.
So some of the things that we tell creators when they come to us with this is, like, if this is a result, you're doing it on day one, it might be your audience just loves you and they would click on like much more variants of thumbnails than an audience that doesn't know you, so try running the test later. Or the difference is so small that it's not really like apparent to people, so make a bigger difference in your concepts. So there's a lot of variables creators can play around with to test like a couple weeks later, even testing back catalogs sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. And also I really love, I think about, again, going back to human, if I read a bottle and the bottle said red wine and then I poured it out and it was white wine, like, I might not, if I might be like, oh, interesting. Or I might be like, that's not what I expected. So I think there's also this importance of making sure that the thumbnail speaks to, the thing on the tin is what is in the tin, right? It says what it, or you sort of keep the curiosity where it's like, I'm going to find out what's inside. And so I do think that with thumbnails, the other topic that tends to come up is this click-through rate.
Versus,
and I will versus sort of watch time. And the reason we look at watch time is, yes, you might be able to get someone to pique the curiosity of like,
clickbait. I can clickbait all day.
Open, what's in the tin? Like on the tin. Do you want to know what's in this tin? Yeah, I do. I open it. Maybe it's not for me. But actually, and that's fine if that's what you're optimizing for. But ultimately, when we say give everyone a voice and show them the world, it's that it should be a signal into what you're about to find. And so we look at the fact that this person watched tells you that this delivered on what it was intending to do. And so that's also the reasoning for why we lean into sort of watch time, because ultimately that's the thing that's going to get stickiness, returning viewers, that's going to get people, that's going to get, ads placed in the video, right, for those who are monetized. So I think it really, it goes, the moral of the story today is like intentionality. Like, what are you trying to get with that thumbnail? And how do you make sure that you are learning, even with the thumbnails and the variations, but also when you get a preferred, that's just a signal. And sometimes.
I do love that, because you have to click to be able to watch it, and you have to retain to be able to get the time. And if you just indexed on click-through and people felt like they'd been clickbaited and dropped out of the video, that you had zero attention, you'd get worse performance. We would be giving you a result that encouraged you to have like worse performance on your videos. And I think that's the paradox of data we were talking about earlier, where sometimes someone's like studio will say the click-through rate is really high, and they'll say like, why am I not getting more views? And it's because 10% of 1,000 is way less than 2% of 1,000,000.
Right.
So like the statistics, it comes back to that. And I think trying to be helpful here is to really help creators understand it's watch time that's showing them the good results from the video.
Yeah, and I also think there are obviously tactics like, when I click through, a lot, depending on if I'm on TV or mobile, there's also sort of like, I want to almost get the trailer version. I hear creators say that, but they're creators, and I actually, I love. One of my favorite things to do on YouTube is like go down the rabbit hole of short films, and you just see these beautiful videos, and I'm glad that they don't start with 15 seconds of boom, 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 because I actually want to sort of discover, there's a creator I love, Danny Gervitz, who I watch all the time, and it's just these really beautiful, like the cinematography is amazing. And so like for that sort of creator, you might see the thumbnail and some people might click in and it's like, oh, it's starting slow, and actually that's the beauty of it. But he has other videos where he goes straight into it, right? So again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier of, I'd love to continue to see people feeling comfortable to experiment within reason, because that's where the magic comes out. Like if we don't push the envelope, how do we find these magical pieces? But also being comfortable with, not every video has to have the same goals. Some might be reaching new people. Some might be for your existing
different
audience.
Jobs to be done.
Different jobs to be done. A very, very product manager of you. I think there's something else that I a lot of time when I speak to creators, I don't hear that they know about this. So a lot of creators know that you can link from a short to
Yeah.
a VOD. A lot of creators do not. So this is my, that's something to think about. There are moments like I watch these podcasts like 3 hours long, like Andrew Huberman podcasts, 3 hours long, and I'll watch them over multiple days, and that's great. I'll pause and I come back, and sometimes I rewatch them. I especially loved like his Andy Galpin series. He had 6 parts, and really talking about like, weight and all of that. But there are all these shorts as well, because there are times I come back and I want to just remember a thing that Andy said. There was kind of this soundbite. And that's amazing. I think both of those work. And what a lot of creators don't realize is you can actually link multiple shorts to a single VOD. And I love film, as I've probably, I love watching trailers. I remember when you used to just go and watch trailers, like in the cinema, I don't like missing the trailers. And whilst, shorts isn't not just to be used for trailers, you also use that for sort of the behind the scenes and like the sort of what's coming, and it's like lightweight creation. But also I think there's an element of like, find me those golden nuggets, right? That you would probably put at the beginning of the video, but also use shorts, because now I'm just swiping through, and that is a beautiful way to discover content I may never have found. And you can link multiple shorts to a VOD.
But it is, to your point, very Hollywood. Like Hollywood, like there will be this is what's coming for the movie. The movie's dropping today.
Right.
Here's the movie.
Right.
Here's like a scene from the movie. Like here's like what people are saying about the movie. Here's the interview that we did about the movie. Here's like the Q&A we did, and all of it.
The extras, save for the directors. And I feel like I'd love to see more people use those other elements. Also post a picture about, hey, we're about to get in and like record this podcast. And it's again a human experience. Like if people are curious, they want to see all of these things, and it's another way to keep people sort of engaged and curious about what's coming.
I have to ask, you don't have to answer, but I have to ask, creators are now, like you gave them the thumbnail A/B testing. Now, because we're creators, we would love title A/B testing. We would love intro A/B testing. We would love brand deal A/B testing. We would love outro A/B testing. We want to just basically A/B test all the things. How are you thinking about A/B/C testing going forward?
It's funny, A/B within the team, there's a joke because it's my name, A/B. I will say on title A/B, watch this space. But we definitely hear this a lot. And there was a Jacqueline, she was talking about sort of how do you test multiple intros and outros. I do want to say this. There is also an element of, I think as we get into a world powered, like technology powered by Gen AI, I mean, I almost imagine a world where we say ABC, maybe it's even more. Maybe it's like for this specific type of audience, I'm going to tweak the title this
segmentation.
Way. And I'm right. So I mean, the world's the oyster, but the reality is, as much as we do have a roadmap and resource constraints that we have to think about.
Have unlimited engineering.
We don't have, damn, And so we have to, when I think about sort of just the simple thing of hosting multiple 1-minute videos, I'm like, holy cow, for a single video.
Like 3 titles times 3 thumbnails times 3 intros times 3,
That's a lot of compute. But yes, I think that the future is definitely a world where we help creators optimize a lot better. That's what I will say. So when you're in that metadata editor, I sort of have this sort of vision, so to speak, of it'd be great if you actually never needed to edit. Right, you publish one time.
You had me never edit.
You never have to come back and edit. It just it sort of optimizes either whether you're uploading and it tells you there's suggestions or keywords to think about, products to tag, or which we already sort of do. But the ideal, an ideal meaning the dream state would be you just set it. And that's it.
So that's a beautiful segue on your part into, we started off with a research tab, and we've gotten now like trends, and we've gotten inspiration. And inspiration does, like, to go back to the DJ in you, like it does feel like I'm starting to jam with studio.
We call our meeting studio jams for this reason, and our monthly meeting studio sessions, because it's like really playing into that. Like, right? It used to be this kind of unformed thing, and you came in and you didn't know what you were going to walk out with. So yes, with the inspiration tab, it first started with this idea of when when we talk to creators, there's this period they go through of research and finding the sparks. But again, going back to not every creator has the same creative process. Some it's very linear, some it's sort of...
For me, it's the tyranny of the blank page. Like,
Right.
I just need something.
Exactly. It's a blank canvas problem. And so when we launched the first version of it, we called it Research even, which tells you a bit of how we were thinking about the product. It was helping you find keywords and patterns and what is your audience watching. And what we started to realize was, with the creative process, it's not this linear thing where I look for words, and it's not this sort of a very sort of scientific. Actually, we should allow for this beauty of I can go back and forth, and I can go wide and then really scatter a lot of things, on the blank canvas, and then converge into something. And so we talk about this notion of sparks, right? These sparks that sort of seed the idea. So as we watched and talked to lots of creators, different types of creators, different backgrounds, etc., what you find is this: help me solve the blank canvas problem. Just give me something to start with. And it's like if we went into a jam and I start snapping, like, oh, I like that. And it's like this yes and, right? And I'm going to start.
It's very much like, even if, like, here's the bad version, but at least there's something for you to start with.
Exactly. And so, and with that, you can start to give us, oh, actually, interesting. I'll hear sometimes in research, I never would have thought about that. And that for me is a win. It's like, okay, 10 things in front of you, one kind of pushes the envelope once again. One thing is kind of showing you a different way of doing things. And so with the Inspiration tab, we've now essentially split the product in two. You have this one part, which is the Inspiration tab, that lets you come up with ideas and jam with them and brainstorm. We use these, and go into this idea page where you can start to think about titles and thumbnails, etc. But you have this other part, which is the trends. What is happening on YouTube, right? And that is more analytical. I go into my analytics, and you go into the trends tab, and you still have the keywords and, the people who sort of geek out about the outliers, the search engine optimization keywords. And both of those are important. You might have a trend and use that to type in and say, actually, give me something based on this trending topic. Or the other thing I hear about is creators will look at, videos your audience is watching. And sometimes there's panic about that. Like, oh,
that whole audience tab, thank you, by the way.
Right. Like, oh, that doesn't align with my content. But actually, maybe it doesn't. But that's a window into your audience watching a video, and they just watched your video. And that's there's curiosity there as well. Is there something interesting that I can see from these other videos they're watching that I might be able to pull from? Is that an opportunity to collaborate with a creator? Is that, a gap in topics? And so, you also see that in like content your audience watched in the audience tab. And that really is, the algorithm is looking at, I might be watching a cat video, and on the right, it's showing me suggested videos, and yours pops up. And that's based on, that person's watch history. And
sometimes creators think it's about them, but it's really about the audience.
It's not about you. It's it's about the audience.
So where do you see, like, you mentioned you're working on a film. Maybe even 10 years ago, that would have been impossible for, like, I know for someone with my resources,
100%.
your resources, like typically in design, they'll say you have 100 candidates, 10 likely, and you pick like 3 and then 1. But most people can't afford to make 100 versions of something, like maybe
or even 1.
So, or to go through all like ideas at scale, or to get something like. How are you seeing like AI in general helping creators?
And I think that's such a key word. And when we go back to the why of Studio, we said we're your creative partner. We're not the creative black box that just creates for you, right? Our goal is to help in that creative process. So I'll give you a perfect example. I just made this short documentary. And this idea of celebrating West African heritage and culture has been on my mind for 10 years. So true story. You're like, people didn't have, true story. I could not have made this video 10 years ago. Like, period. Cameras are cheaper, lenses are cheaper, right? You have a lot more that can be done digitally. I was able to edit with somebody in Nigeria using tools where I could see the edits, whereas before you would have had to send flash drives or CDs back and forth. So there's just so much, or flown over there to see it, right? There's just so much we could do. And so when I was coming up with the topics, I was able to go into, I actually use a lot of the Inspiration tab, sort of see when I typed in the keyword of this topic. It's called Dundun, and Dundun is a Yoruba word for sweet sound. Nice. And when I typed it in, all the videos were about like how to make a drum, how to make a talking drum. They were very kind of didactic. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm actually trying to get you into the window of this person's mind. But what it also showed me were all these other documentary videos, like cooking videos, and even like a trailer for Chef's Table.
Yes.
Right? Which actually inspired, the approach and the kind of stylistic approach that I took with the film. And so now I've been able to take, you've got the inspiration tab, but I go to gemini.google.com and I typed in, hey, here are these 3 other topics that I would like to explore. Which of these do you think would be actually the way I asked the prompt, and this is I sort of asked like what would be a good sequel and why? Yeah. And it gave me this, this topic because of this, and it's interesting. It wasn't like there's a right or wrong, but it gave me color and nuance. It would have taken me a lot of time, and now I can take that and go one step further. So I'm like, okay, with this topic, here's sort of the hook that I'm thinking of, and I can bring that back into the inspiration tab and sort of come up with conceptual thumbnails and like an outline and take that and sort of keep riffing. Yeah. And so, what we've seen with technology allowing more stories to be told, I think this next frontier is now you can storyboard. Yeah. You don't need to hire a sketch artist to storyboard a film. Now you can think about generating shots like a tight shot, a medium shot, just to see how it would look, right? So that you can write the script in a way where, oh, that's actually what I was looking for. So I had to learn all these terms and put those in prompts. So I'm very excited about this future where more people can tell stories with less barriers.
I love that. One other question we get quite a lot, and I just want to help people understand this. Why can't we get every feature in every surface, in every version, all at the same time, always?
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
So like I can like change a thumbnail on mobile, I can't change it on desktop, but I can do like this, like I can upload in 4K on desktop, but I can't upload in, like we have all these different features on different areas. If we gave you like 1 billion people, could we just like get everything all at once?
That'd be a lot of chaos, first of all. Entropy is a thing. It's a fantastic question. One of our core principles with Studio is it really is the foundation. We call it accessible, and it's this idea that you should not need. It's what we just talked about. You shouldn't have to get a laptop or have like an expensive internet connection in some countries or a super high-end phone to be able to express yourself, right? Storytelling. You look at really old YouTube videos that sort of blew up, and some of the videos even today, it's like the story is the essence of it. Like we do all of this, but really at the end of it, there's a story.
Like lo-fi, and people just want to hear the conversation.
Point exactly. Yeah. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of that that access is so important. So one of the things, you see this over the years, we wanted to make sure, for example, like I said, in the YouTube app, we wanted to make sure that you could access analytics, because for a lot of creators, some in emerging markets, some just getting started, I don't want to download another app just to get an understanding of views, right? So, or my basic analytics.
I don't even know there's another app.
Right, and that's okay. And it's like, let's meet you where you are and bring some of that in there. And on Studio Mobile, it used to be, and I used to sort of gawk at this, sort of like you couldn't upload a video on Studio Mobile for a very long time. You had to go on the web or the YouTube app. And we've sort of closed that. So it's definitely a philosophy that we make sure we're not going to bring everything into every surface. There are just things you can't do on the form factor of a phone versus a laptop. So we also want to be intentional about, for example, advanced analytics. Yeah. I don't want you comparing 2 videos and looking at graphs on your mobile phone. Like, that's never going to be a thing, right?
Telescope.
Right. It's just, no, it's not. It's not a great experience. But I think, there is this theme of we want to make sure that you're able to access these products and meet you where you are based on what you're trying to accomplish. So when you're getting started, you've got basic analytics. When you get more intentional, then you download Studio Mobile and you're willing to sort of make that high, spend that cost of downloading another app and understanding it to go deeper. And then, over time, we've made it so that it actually worked very well on the iPad. It wasn't always the case, right? Now it's a lot more seamless.
Foldable too.
Foldable as well, and, on a desktop. So absolutely, even if you threw in a lot of resources, there are certain things that would not exist everywhere, but there's definitely a long way for us to go in closing the gaps.
Do you think about what type of user uses each surface
Absolutely.
to prioritize as well? Like,
Absolutely.
like this is more of a mobile audience, so we'll start off with
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, and also types of there are markets like my home country, Nigeria, where it's going to be predominantly mobile for quite some time. There are creators on laptops, but the country really is mobile first, and so you have people with mobile and TV, and even have a laptop, right? Or have a laptop at work. Right. And we also want you to be able to create. So for a Nigerian who is on mobile, we want to be able to give you an inspiration experience, right?
Yeah.
An inspiration tab experience where it works with that mobile form factor where I'm not seeing a list of things and something on the side because I just don't have that space. Yeah. So what does that look like? So we have to design with that intentionality around mobile first and probably on the go.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And there are also creators who use it as a companion. So creators will say, I use the mobile for looking at my notifications and looking at quick comments, and then I go do a proper workflow on the web later on to write. So we also think about those kinds of experiences. The key is remembering that creators are as nuanced as they come, right?
So what is, like, writ large, your vision for Studio? Where do you see it going over the next couple of years? No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure whatsoever. I think the answer really lies in what does it mean to continue to be a creative partner over time?
Yeah.
Because creators' needs evolve, and we've been talking about this the whole time. Technology evolves and storytelling is evolving. And what does that mean to be a true partner? And I think at the core of that is optimizing for creators' goals. Not every creator is trying to get to X number of views. Some creators just want their 100 folks who love their stuff. Creators have different goals.
They just want to sell a product and they have a specific audience in mind. Yeah.
Right. And for some people, it's I just have my my members, for example, and I love what my colleagues are doing with memberships and fan funding, where some creators I'll post videos and the real sort of core thing. That's for my members who really get what I'm trying to do. So it's really I feel like a broken record, but we say repetition doesn't spoil the prayer. It's this notion of meeting creators where they are and also continuing to evolve in a way where we are able to help aid you to tell that story in its most authentic form, right? Where we do show you all these numbers, and I would love a world where we're able to help you make sense of those numbers based on the goals that you have, right? And that also means understanding some of those goals in a more nuanced way. I think it's also there are still these sort of journeys that are somewhat fragmented, right? So you go into this experience and this app and that app, and also making sure that it's seamless, right? Regardless of what sort of editing tool or what products you're using, how do we make that expression as seamless as possible, right, in a very elegant way? But of course, it's a vision. And really, I think at the core of it, I like to use the term expression meets connection.
Okay, I love that.
Right? And expression means you never feel a barrier to expressing yourself, whatever form, whatever format, whatever story, right? Whether it's a podcast, or you want to try something else, or live, that it just works. Yeah. And then ultimately you're not expressing yourself just for yourself. Although I love Dochi, I've been watching her stuff. She has these videos, I don't know if you've seen them, from 4 years ago, where she was recording them for herself. By the way, every creator should watch them. Yeah. She was just recording, it was a diary. She read this book called The Artist's Way. It's a beautiful book. And she went through 12 weeks. It's a 12-week program. And she recorded, she was like, Dochi, this is for you in future. And I love that. I'm just like, she turned off comments. She's like, she'll say things like, this is for me. Yeah. You are frustrated right now. We're going, and she just won like Grammys and right. And it's a creator first musician. And I love that, YouTube is a place where she did that. And this is what I'm saying. You express yourself, and ultimately you have a goal, and you build connections with people. And those connections may be someone in some remote village somewhere who connects with you. And the the platform allows you to do that. You don't have to get on a plane to connect with these people. You have a tribe all over the world. And how do we make sure the connection stays at the core? And it's not just chasing the numbers. Numbers are important, but it's not just chasing the numbers. It's about building those connections. And then the sort of, for those who want to monetize, and what it comes from that intersection of expression and connection.
I love that so much. I love you so much. Thank you so much for taking this time with us.
Thank you, Rene.
And thank you, insiders. You know what to do. Just drop down there, leave us comments, leave us questions, and keep it real.